Next up, Matt Warta, from co-founder and CEO of GutCheck. And Matt's gonna talk to us about the state of agile research, what your peers are saying. Matt was telling me, and I have to say I didn't quite get this one, but he can explain it better. He played against Barry Sanders at high school in Wichita. Barry went on to be part of the NFL Hall of Fame. Well, Matt is gonna talk to us about state of agile research.
Thanks for that humbling introduction. So who knows who Barry Sanders is out there? Thank you. Feel better. Barry, other than being quite elusive on the football field, was also, I'd say, quite agile. I know I never touched him. And agile, he was certainly very quick. He was able to change on a dime a lot of the characteristics of agile. So GutCheck, the company I started, we've been at this agile thing for about 3 years, which was probably when it all started. We've stepped back in the past year just to kind of reflect on where this whole movement is. I think a lot of people are talking about it in the industry. People are starting to adopt it, but personally, we wanted to know ourselves kind of where things stand and what's next. So the way we did this, we did a survey, and we looked at how many people knew about Agile. We looked at, for those that implemented Agile projects, what kind of success they saw, the value that they saw in these projects. And then we also wanted to understand barriers and how to overcome some of those barriers. So I'm going to share that with you. Just one slide on us, and it's very quick, just to kind of set some context for who GutCheck is. We're a global solution provider of what we call quick consumer reads, and we do this for any business question as they come up. The global nature of this, we're in 26 countries today. The solution part of it is we're really kind of methodology agnostic. We do both quant and qual, and we have a full services team on top of our technology platform. So we can do everything from helping design studies to executing them as well. These quick consumer reads are what our customers call agile and what we do. And it's a nod to the fact that things are typically done in days. The consumers are very specific. They're not category level folks. And the read is a nod to that full service component. And then the business questions as they come up is more and more we're finding that there's certainly a lot of planned research that happens, but there's a lot of unplanned research that happens too, and we need capabilities to be able to address both. Not going to go through that. So why is Agile important? So I want to set some context in terms of some trends that we see, and I'm sure many of you are feeling out there. The first is just kind of compression of cycle times out there. Whether it's getting information, we have information at our fingertips now. Our stakeholders within organizations and different departments like marketing have more and more information at the ready. It's much easier to launch new products today. It's much easier to get an ad campaign out there quickly, given all the ad technology that is out there today. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of budgetary pressure. I haven't talked to a whole lot of clients that are increasing their budgets. At the same time, they're being asked to do the same, if not more. So that whole more with less notion. And on top of that, we have changing consumer preferences. I just read an article about what was going on in Chinese e-commerce and what left some consumer products companies flat-footed, in that a lot of demand was going over to e-commerce platforms versus in-store. And a lot of big CPG companies saw some very big declines in their sales. And it was all because of this quick changing consumer trend. So a lot of changes happening out there. The other thing that we're seeing and hearing from a lot of our clients is there's more of a focus now on learning versus outright validation and qualification on the back end. That's still going to happen, but people are trying to place more emphasis on learning early stage in development cycles. And the whole idea is that you can de-risk projects by really iterating through your learnings through development cycles. I think Colin Powell sums it up very well with his 40-70 rule. And basically the 40-70 rule is If you have less than 40% of the information you need, you're relying too much on your gut experience and intuition. And likewise, if you have more than 70%, you're probably doing too much work. You're doing too much analysis, too much analytics, and maybe you should rely a little bit more on your experience, judgment, and intuition that you built up during the years. So we're seeing that more. And then we're seeing a lot of unplanned research. I saw a recent study that said that over 51% of research questions that are being asked now are of the unplanned variety versus planned research questions. And when we polled folks, we found that about 72% of the time those were coming up within the last month, if not within the last week or so. So a lot of big trends going on to support something that perhaps is more agile in nature. So in terms of the survey that we did, we had 253 people complete the survey. And just a little bit about the study. This is the quant phase of the study. We're also going to do a qualitative follow-on in this. And the entirety of the results are going to be in our second annual Agile Research ebook that's coming out. And happy to send that to all of you if you like. But 253 participants in the survey. A lot of our clients are end clients, so this was heavily weighted toward end clients. The folks that were in the agency world were of both market research agencies and ad agencies. And then of end clients, we had marketing, brand, and research titles, mostly research titles in this. But even if you cut the data between marketing and brand folks to consumer insights folks, there wasn't really any meaningful differences in the data. So the state of things. So 63% of folks felt they knew what Agile was. And most of those just somewhat agreed with that. Very few strongly agreed with it. I think it was about 15%. I think part of that is what happens a lot in emerging markets like this, where you have a variety of vendors out there that are pitching Agile and maybe pitching it in a little bit of a different way. And so that can create some confusion in the market. Here's some examples of the folks that I think are doing a good job of doing things in a more agile way and pitching and selling agile solutions. So those that said they felt they knew what Agile was, they tend to describe it in the same way. This was an open end. Again, quick, iterative, fast, and this idea of being flexible. And I think in this case, the notion was it makes them more flexible in their work environment. Again, being able to kind of change on a dime and either answer those unplanned research questions that come up, or when they find some research results that they weren't expecting, to do some more learning. So is it successful? Hell yeah. Who's a David Hasselhoff fan out there? No Baywatch people? Okay. Anyway, 80% of folks that had conducted a research project using Agile methods found it successful. Success was defined as were they able to get the insights and information they needed? Was it done within budget, and was it done on time? So that equated to success here. So the value of Agile research in this case, the first two are really kind of, I'd say, two different sides on the same coin, both flexible and that ability to respond to change. So again, in this very quick-paced environment we're in, where consumer trends are changing all the time, these unplanned questions are being thrown at us. We need to be very flexible and be able to respond to change. The other thing is that there's this acceleration in time to market. Again, because these methods are very quick, because you can do a lot of learning upstream and really iterate, people felt like they were getting to market quicker with ideas. Again, that ability to iterate multiple times was very important, and affordability was also of the top ones. So where are things going? I think given the value that we're seeing there, a lot of folks see more Agile adoption in the future. 77% said they'd see more Agile adoption in the next 12 months. And if you look out 5 years from now, it was well into the 80s. And actually, this was kind of interesting to me, but basically we also asked folks to think about Agile adoption from a company standpoint, from an individual standpoint. This was the company results. If you ask people if they're going to be more Agile in the future, it's about 90% that thought that they would be more Agile. So there's a bit of a difference when you look at the company versus the individual. And then there's a lot of other supporting evidence that suggests the world is going this way. If you do a Google search on Agile market research, there's almost 3 million hits now, people talking about Agile market research and content related to it. So like any nascent methodology, which I would certainly characterize, especially in market research, a 3-year-old methodology, it's pretty nascent, it's pretty early on. There's some big barriers to adoption here. And the one is resistance to change. In reflection, this wasn't a big surprise. This is an industry where there's methodologies that have been around for decades. They've been well proven. There's been research on the research done, and we're very comfortable making decisions based on them. And so when a new provider named GutCheck shows up at your doorstep, sometimes it's kind of hard to change gears and kind of go in a different direction. And on a quality hesitation front, I've heard a lot of people at conferences talk about, it's fast, affordable, high quality, but you can only have 2. So there's certainly a mindset in the industry that if it's fast and if it's affordable, it's not going to be high quality. And obviously we saw on the other hand, those that had implemented Agile projects already found quality, and they found the results that they needed. Budget constraints is another interesting contrast. Again, those that had used an Agile methodology found it quite affordable, whereas those that think of a barrier think of a budget. And again, I think this is because with the declining budgets, we're probably more reluctant to find that scarce budget to then throw out a new methodology. And then the last one was just availability of skilled vendors. If you looked at that list closely that I put up before, the only one on there that has been around for a while is Millward Brown. So a lot of the traditional providers aren't out there talking about Agile. So I think, especially if you haven't used Agile before, you're not quite sure if these new providers are of the skilled variety that you're used to. So those were the adoption barriers. I've been in the market research world for about 5 years. Before that, I worked in venture capital and started other businesses, all kind of the B2B variety. And any emerging methodology that I backed or helped start, these same adoption barriers existed. So they're very commonplace, and it takes some pretty basic blocking and tackling to overcome. So the big ones, if you look at the first 2 and the last one, a lot of them have to do with education. So what can we as vendors do to educate folks out there so that we can overcome some of these barriers? It's about getting up with clients, talking about how they used it, what value they saw, and how the resulting decision they made was a good one. And then the next one is executive sponsorship. When we take these results from these Agile methodologies, are executives going to be okay with it? Are they going to be comfortable with making decisions based off of this new methodology versus the ones that they've been used to for perhaps decades? And then the final one is just implementation of a common tool. Again, there's a lot of providers out there pitching Agile methodologies and fulfilling on them. And over time, in most markets, this will rationalize too. There will be kind of a handful that probably serve most of the market. And so where there's a lot of different vendors, clients aren't really apt to try to provide kind of or put together kind of a best of breed solution on their own. And so they're looking for one tool that can fit most of their needs. So key takeaways, a lot of the tailwinds are there for Agile market research to continue. Quicker cycle times on most things, budgetary pressures, and lots of change. Those that are using Agile are finding a lot of success, but we still have some very big barriers for Agile to go more mainstream in the market. But again, I feel comfortable and I'm heartened by kind of the barriers that we're seeing. These are ones that can definitely be overcome. And I believe based on the results that I've seen and the work that I've seen us do with clients and I've seen some of the other providers do with clients, I think it's just kind of a matter of time before we see much larger scale adoption. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, I'll kick off with a question that I had while I was listening to you. So it's a thought and a question. You spoke about Agile and plan research, and in some contexts or types of research projects, Agile could go against the idea of the project. So for example, you're running a brand tracker, and if you're super Agile, you can screw things up pretty badly. So what would you say the right context is for Agile research?
Yeah, that is a great question. Agile is not meant to be for everything, for sure. Most of the projects that we work on are kind of development stage projects. So there's a lot of learning to be done up front, and it's kind of a fuzzy front end a lot. So you want to kind of iterate through things, and so it's not kind of a hard and fast thing where it's a brand tracker and you don't want to change things over time. So I'd say the characteristics are there's a lot of information that needs to be gained. Things will change over the course of the project. Really kind of discrete projects, I think, are also very useful, whether it's some kind of screening exercise, for example, I think are quite good for Agile methods.
Very good. Someone from the floor, any questions over there?
Hi, how are you? Yes, my name is Ivan Casas from Metrics. Since we have, although we're a market research firm, we have a lot of software development for market research. So we have applied actually Agile, especially Scrum, for software development, right?
Sure.
My question is, you didn't go into the details of of the methodology, specifically just under that. Is there any? I mean, are you using the same either artifacts or the same methodology, like for example Scrum would be doing in research? I don't know if it's, because I know that might take a long time, but I mean, if you can kind of because I didn't get any, I mean, what I was really, to be honest, I was hoping to get some insights on the methodology they're using, specifically, how it works and so on.
Well, they told me not to pitch you, so
okay.
I try to stay away from that.
So, I mean, any similarity with Scrum in terms of, the product owner, blah, 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 all that stuff, or?
Yeah, I got the question. So this notion of Agile comes from the software development world, and there's many different ways of conducting Agile in the software development world. We lifted the Agile concept generally because if you think about Agile in the software development world, a lot of the same things apply. It's a much quicker way of doing things. It's much more iterative in nature. You kind of learn upstream, and then downstream you have good quality projects. So I think conceptually it's the same, but from a methodology standpoint, it's different. But I think what you are seeing is that there's different methodologies emerging. I think Steve Phillips was here earlier. If you heard him talk about Agile, he'd probably talk about it slightly different than I do and slightly different than somebody else. So there are some variants here that I think are we're starting to see in the early stages.
We've got time for one more question, if you've got any. Nobody else? All right. Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Let's give Matt a hand, please.